The Quackin'! The snow is so deep, they're struggling. They don't mind the cold. Just they lose a little bit of mobility. So I just read this article earlier this morning.
Climate change insurance. Buy land elsewhere. In case global warming makes their homes uninhabitable, some millennials have a plan B, investing in places like the Catskills, Oregon, and Vermont.
The New York Times is running this trend story about millennials and their response to climate change. I'm not one who's likely to put stock in New York Times trend pieces. Ugh, another millennial trend piece. Why? I mean, they've covered everything from the rise of the man bun to people sleeping with way too many pillows to all sorts of different ways to style your short and curlies. So take it for what it's worth as a New York Times trend piece. So the article had these profiles about 20 and 30 somethings who are buying land outside of the metropolitan area that they live and setting up sort of a second residence where they plan to be self-sustainable and where they can grow their own food. My first reaction was like, God, why do people have to do what I want to do? So they essentially have an escape hatch for when the problems created by climate change get to be too much for the area that they're living in.
Mr. Dowski, 33, lives in Greenwich, Connecticut, but he can envision a time when his home there might be besieged by extreme weather and rising sea levels. Will I need it in 10 years from now or 30 years, he said? I don't know. But if his part of Greenwich is ever in jeopardy, he added, I'll have a safe space.
For my wife Alyson and me, as recently as 2 years ago, we owned land in Washington, D.C. We had a row house, very, very low, very close to the Anacostia River. And, I will admit, climate change or the long-term effects of climate change did create a certain sense of alarm for me. I wouldn't say that the reason we moved up to our farm here in Vermont was driven by climate change. It wasn't even in like the top 5 considerations by any means. But that said, as we were weighing different places in the country to live, like so for example, we considered Virginia as a place to settle or rural Maryland. The idea that Vermont was a northern, cooler climate with more rainfall and less exposure to the coast, that might have been somewhat attractive. And there's a lot of things that we have done or that we plan to do around our farm to make ourselves much more self-sustaining, whether it's growing our own food with the orchard that we're building or coming up with a long-term plan for how we generate and store and consume energy. The projections of what climate change will mean over the next 30, 40, 60 years, that has absolutely been part of my consideration set for all the plans that we've had and for all the activities that we have going on here. Now, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about all this, and so I will leave a link to the story down below in the description of this video. Definitely tell me what you're thinking in the comments. I read all of these comments, and I'm very curious to get the reaction of all of you out there in YouTube land. Dude, why are you talking about climate change when you're surrounded by snow? The New York Times trend piece did give me a certain sense of trepidation, and I had 3 immediate thoughts, and I actually wanted to just take a minute and share those with you guys. So thought number 1 is, for all the people that were profiled in the story or other people who are like that out in the world, and I've met plenty of them myself, including a lot of my friends, people who say, wow, it would be really smart to get far away from society and grow your own food and be completely self-sufficient. Well, let me just tell you, it ain't easy. And if this is a plan that you're seriously considering, don't underestimate the amount of knowledge you need, the amount of capital you're going to need, the amount of work that it actually takes. All of those things are real challenges that we've faced personally here as we've worked to get started. And so, don't just look at, some vlogger on YouTube or some awesome Instagram account or some weird survivalist infographic that you found on Pinterest and say, oh, this is going to be so easy. It's not easy. And if you really are committed to this idea of growing your own food and being self-sufficient, it becomes a massive, massive, massive lifestyle shift. So the second reaction I had is for all the people who are considering to do this, don't neglect the importance of your community. And you know, they actually interviewed a scientist in the New York Times piece, to their credit, and he said this very well.
Bruce Riordan, program director for the Climate Readiness Institute at the University of California, Berkeley, cautioned that it isn't realistic to expect to live in a bubble. Sure, you can grow your own vegetables, but what about wheat and grains, he said, and what happens when you need medical attention? A better strategy, Mr. Riordan suggested, would be to find a community that is intelligently preparing for whatever climate change may bring. He equated this situation to what California has done about earthquakes. They can't be avoided, but we can build safer buildings, get better at predicting them, and establish systems to care for vulnerable populations when they occur.
Look, when you're trying to survive and you're trying to sustain yourself on a homestead, you're not an island. You're going to need to have friends. You're going to need to have people that can help you, whether it's harvesting food or, you know, butchering animals or building a structure. Having your friends and having people in your community that you can rely on and partner with and share and work together with is so important. And so if you are out there planning for this dystopian climate change society, don't neglect the importance of your community. Don't neglect the importance of being a part of a resilient community. Don't neglect the importance of being a part of something bigger than you. And that means not just having people that you can draw on for help, but also being there and being available to others and making sure that you can be a support and a help to people out there, particularly those people in your community. Then I guess my third reaction is very specific to, well, what's next? So here I am, a guy who bought land in Northern Vermont, one of those places that is considered to be one of the best places to live in 2100. And I'm trying to set up my own homestead, and I'm trying to get a farm business going. And so I wonder what's next. So if I just for a moment assume that the New York Times piece is accurate and that this is truly an emerging trend, what happens next when all of these other people start moving up here and all of these people make a rush to lead a life that's much more protected against the changes of climate change? I got to really think about what that's going to mean, both in terms of what sort of challenges does that create, what sort of opportunities does that create. But if this is true, and that's a massive, massive if, but if this is true, this could be a significant trend in development. I don't know, I guess I find that type of stuff interesting. So yeah. If you're interested in learning about what we're doing here at Goldshaw Farm, be sure to check out one of our other videos and you can see how we are going through the process of starting a farm here in Vermont. Or you can just subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.